Iran attacking Turkey could definitely mean something bigger.
Fragments of the weapon fell near a construction site in the south. No injuries or damage have been reported. NATO has confirmed the incident and said it's ready to defend member states against any threat. Turkey has been mostly unaffected by Iranian strikes, despite U.S. troops being stationed at several of its bases. Our correspondent Dorian Jones is following this story for us and joins us now from Turkey. Dorian, Turkey is clearly angry about these incidents. It has warned that it will respond to all threats. So what can we expect Ankara to do next?
Well, you're absolutely right. In a Turkish ministry statement, they said all means will be used decisively to protect Turkish territory. Now, Turkey does have NATO's second largest army. It has a large air force as well as major drone forces as well. But having said that, Ankara will be wary of wanting to get embroiled in any military conflict with Iran. It has, since the onset of the conflict, has been determined to avoid any involvement in the conflict. It is aware that its financial markets are already under a great deal of pressure with the $100 plus a barrel of oil, stoking fears of a potential currency crisis. If Turkey was to militarily get involved with Iran, that will put further pressure. But a key factor in Ankara's decision-making process will be, is this missile strike, the second in less than a week from Iran, part of a new strategy from Tehran targeting Turkey? That will be a decisive factor in what Ankara will do next. For now, at least, expected to ramp up diplomatic pressure on Tehran to end these missile strikes.
So Turkey is definitely a part of NATO, but generally they tend to kind of lean more kind of independent, let's say, in how they handle things. Let's just say this year. But the problem is that the other NATO member states, specifically coming from Europe, they're very lefties. Like TDS is an international thing now. Just be fully aware when I say this here. It is everywhere. It is in Europe. It is in the United States of America. It is in Africa. It is in Asia. Anywhere there are people that are excessively, almost extremely left-leaning, they all hate Trump. So when we look at how the Europeans specifically are responding to all of this here, they don't want to get involved because Trump's involved. Right? Like, even though now one of their NATO states were just attacked here twice, and NATO has now shot down the second missile, they still are honestly in like deep speculation. Like, do we even get ourselves involved in this? Not fully understanding what Iran is basically doing. Iran is trying to prove a point. They're attacking all of the Gulf states on purpose. They want them all to respond. They want the world to see specifically how bad they have it. Okay. Understand, it is not the majority of the people that we're talking about here. It is like, bro, it is just the regime and the regime supporters that are basically propagating these things here. Like, if Trump wasn't involved, they would already be there. They would have been here, right? Look, Pedro Sanchez, Keir Starmer, all these people would have definitely already been here, because the excuse that they basically were making is that we cannot enter into this because this is an illegal war. Okay, that's the excuse you're making here. Sure thing, buddy. All right. But now one of your NATO member states are being attacked, and what are you doing about it? Still not allowing the United States of America to utilize bases in your country? Bro, come on. Listen, allies are allies until they're not allies.
Iran denies wanting to attack Turkey, Dorian. Is it plausible that a ballistic missile, perhaps meant for a British military base on Cyprus, could enter Turkish airspace by mistake twice?
Well, that is a possibility, although I think the major consideration here is that these two missile strikes were carried out by local commanders in Iran. Ever since the Israeli-American air assaults on Iran, which saw the decapitation of many of the leaders of the Iranian military, Iran has adopted what it calls the Mosaic Defense Doctrine, which sees a major decentralization of command and control to local commanders on the ground. And the fact that we've only seen single missile strikes aimed at Turkey, which both were around 200 kilometers from a very important Turkish military air base called Incirlik, where there is a large American air presence, suggests that this could be the actions of individual commanders, because it's widely considered that if Tehran was to target Incirlik, they would have to use a sustained barrage of missiles and possibly drones like it has done on its Arab neighbors to have any chance of getting past these considerable air defense systems that protect that air base. So for now, at least, I think Ankara is looking in the perspective that this is individual commanders, but the message is expected to be to Tehran. They have to end this now.
We've seen this war, Dorian, already engulf so many countries in the region. There's a great deal of concern about Turkey because Turkey, of course, is a NATO member state. Could NATO end up being drawn into this war, Dorian?
Well, indeed. I mean, under the NATO Charter, Turkey could invoke Article 5, which is an attack on one member is an attack on all. And that would bring the prospect of expecting NATO to come forward and defend Turkey. Now, Turkey, I think, will be very wary of invoking that. It's very keen to stay out of this conflict. It doesn't even allow American Air Force planes to use Turkish airspace to carry out attacks on Iran. And it would be very wary of NATO forces using Turkey as a platform to attack Iran. Possibly it could invoke Article 4, where it could call for all the NATO leaders to come together to discuss what measures they could take to help Turkey. Possibly Ankara would look for the deployment of America's Patriot missile systems to defend Turkish territory. But Ankara is very wary of getting NATO involved in using Turkish territory to carry out a war against Iran. That is considered a major step by Ankara, and it seemed very unlikely.
There are good reasons to be wary, it would seem. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says he wants to keep his country out of the war. But Dorian, if more rockets are fired at Turkey, if Turkey finds itself under attack, that could change, couldn't it?
Well, undoubtedly, if these missiles continue to strike Turkey, if larger numbers of them start targeting Turkey, and Turkey also hosts a very important NATO radar base in Kurucuk, which is operated by American forces and is a window into Iran used by the American forces, that could possibly be and also could be a target, then there will be pressure on Turkey to do more. The Turkish president has put a big premium on seeking a diplomatic solution to this conflict. In the run-up to the conflict, here in Istanbul, they hosted a meeting with the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, and Turkey criticized Iran for sidelining Turkish efforts in favor of meeting in Oman to avoid this confrontation. In fact, Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan said much of the blame is at Iran's doorstep because they didn't take Turkish efforts seriously. But President Erdogan is stepping up his diplomatic efforts to find a diplomatic solution. He's speaking to regional leaders constantly, and he does have the ear of the American President Donald Trump. Whether that would be enough at some point to end this conflict, it remains unclear. But the message from Ankara is they need a diplomatic solution to this conflict, not a further escalation of the war.
No one wants the idea of literal war. I mean, let's just be completely honest. Now, there are a couple of Iran hawks that are out there that are just get rid of it. Who is the literal state sponsor of terror? And obviously, depending on who you're speaking to, some people, will generally bring up our country for somehow reason. And then Iran will definitely be there also. You can't have a conversation with people who have no interest in literally having the conversation in the first place. Their goal is to now meet their end times. That's what it seems like, guys. It's like they're racing towards their end time by messing with every single country around them. Now, I will say, though, all right, I can put my absolute conspiratorial hat on here because there are a couple of things that just generally do not add up in this story. They don't add up, guys. I'm sorry. Listen, I understand we are in a time and a place, right, where we're now seeing NATO members basically disregarding the United States of America. Okay, us being the largest army force specifically, right, the most powerful of them within NATO. And they're disregarding us. So I can only imagine how stressful that is in the Pentagon, okay? So what if we do a couple of, I don't know, what are they called? False flags on the play, right? To force NATO to basically pay attention, right? Maybe, because again, I'm just putting my conspiratorial hat on. You guys can leave if you want to, but I'm just theorizing here. What if that is a thing that absolutely is something that exists where we now are poking the bear? Notice how rockets are being fired close to an airbase, but not hitting an airbase where there are Americans at. That should by default then tell Erdogan, hey, listen, we're being attacked. Nothing is really happening per se, but we are definitely, in fact, being attacked here, right? So that would mean you need to kind of enact or kind of stand up for Article 5. Article 5 meaning all the NATO states are going to have to kind of do something because, listen, guys, I'm being attacked. We're all one, so we're all being attacked. We have to do something, forcing them to basically allow United States of America to basically utilize bases. Again, I'm kind of, listen, I don't believe generally anything when I see things. All right. I'm skeptical of every single thing, and I'm fully aware of the idea of false flag measures that have happened kind of historically on all sides of things here. I would definitely say watch this very carefully, guys. Okay. That's my opinion. Watch it very carefully. If it is a true thing, is it plausible that Iran, like some random generals, started shooting into Turkey for the sole purpose of bringing Turkey into this, just like how they started firing at Dubai and Kuwait and Bahrain and Qatar, right? I mean, it's plausible, definitely, right? Like, listen, the supreme leader is dead. I can now fire at all the places I hate. It could be. It's plausible. But it could definitely also be plausible that this is like a false flag scenario, and the only goal here, in fact, is to just force NATO into this battle here.